Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, and all of today's guests, including Farhan Lalji, standing by, are brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants take on the Victoria Royals at the LEC tomorrow night. Puck drop is 7 o'clock. Grab a 6 or 12 game flex pack starting as low as $129. Get all the details at vancouvergiants.com/tickets. Farhan and I go back a long ways. I first met Farhan when he was the sports information director up at SFU on Burnaby Mountain. What's that?
What's a sports information director?
Look, media relations.
Then say PR media guy.
You don't know what that is?
That's a fancy
It's
title.
standard
That's a fancy title. Just say
campuses.
PR guy.
Anyway, we go way back.
I know
He showed up yesterday for my BC Sports Hall of Fame induction.
What a
and
nice
as
guy.
soon as I saw him, the first thing that came to mind was, well, where's Rick and Ryan?
Doing a show without you is where we were.
We go back. Farhan joining us now from TSN. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir, and thanks for yesterday. How are you?
I'm good. And listen, first of all, congratulations, because it was so well deserved. And, when I think back to my youth and getting a chance to watch you growing up,
okay.
that. What's funny is that the number of people who responded to my tweet talking about watching you on Sportsnet and not remembering, the original, like where it all started, right? Yeah. When you had the good hair, and you were the young hip guy that, back in the page, so it really tells you how old we are, because generally these things are a reflection of that. But in terms of what you've meant to the market and just how you wear the market on your sleeve and how proud you are about being a BC boy or a North Burnaby boy or all those things, right? I mean, I think that really, really resonates with people, and it matters because you know how we are here, right? Like, we're as Canadian as we are BC first. Yep. And you've always represented that. All the little comments, the Randorf at the Roxy and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's so awesome. It's so great that you're still doing it. And in terms of momentous days, I don't know what was more, unique, you being inducted or Rick hosting a show solo after 30 years of broadcasting. So, two memorable landmark occasions right there. So again, congratulations. It was great to see Lisa. Great to see all your family there. And I hope you're basking in the glow.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Farhan. When are you getting into the BC Sports Hall of Fame? It's just a matter of time, my friend.
But I'm way younger than you, right? So I'm going to get older, clearly. I mean, we've still got BMAC. We've still got McKeach. There's so many others. I mean, heck, Dollywell's way older than me too, right? So
easy there, pal.
There's a few others that need to go in before I go in.
I'm just, the guys here are shocked that you referred to me, at least at one time, as young and hip. I appreciate that, Farhan. I'm still hip. I'm not that young.
Like I'll tell Quinn, right? Quinn and Laney, they need to know this.
Don't forget Reed. All right, hey Farhan, what, switching gears here. What's impressed you the most about the 4-2 Vancouver Canucks?
Well, I think first of all, what really impressed me is the third period of the Nashville game, and even though that game they finally got a little bit of secondary scoring, right? It was. When the game needed to be closed out, those players showed a really, really high work rate and commitment and just a lack of panic. And watching them kill those back-to-back penalties late in that game, last year that game would not have remained the way it was. They would have given up the tying goal. They probably would have given up the tying goal within the first 30 seconds. There would have been an incredible amount of panic. So just to see them play with a level of structure and just that level of work rate, I think impressed me. But, overall, you can see that there is a commitment to Rick Tocchet's message. And when you go back to that Philadelphia game, he talked about them being soft, and I think they heard it loud and clear. So he's created a level of competition on the roster. You look at Hughes and Roenick playing together or even apart, and their ability to control play. So there's a lot to like because, if they squeaked out wins last year, it was generally on the backs of their goaltending, in those situations, whereas here, Demko didn't have to make a bunch of 5-alarm saves in that game. So just watching the process and watching the overall commitment to work at key times in games has been, it's been positive for sure.
Farhan, not impressed with the Lions' effort against Calgary last week. Now they got a bye week. If I'm Dave Dickinson, I'm pretty happy with beating the Lions the way he did, and now they got. How does this bye week affect them going into the playoff game?
Well, for the Lions, I think it's a positive because they need to regroup on a few different levels. Because I think I don't know what level of true understanding there is over there for how poor the defense has been for the last 3 months. Right, because at the beginning we were talking about this team being historically good, and then the Donut Boys things happened, when they get the second shutout against Edmonton, and then they got waxed by Winnipeg, and since then they have been really, really ordinary. And if you look at the key defensive metrics, scoring defense, total defense, second down conversions against, average yards per play, they're in the bottom 3 in the league in all of those things over a 3-month sample size. So that create some cause for concern, right? Because those aren't one-offs. So they need to get better in that area. And I remember last year when they played Calgary, the storyline coming into that game was, how is BC going to stop the run? Because late in the regular season, they ran all over the Lions. And so then in the playoff game, they made some adjustments to the point where Dave Dickinson didn't even try to run, which was ridiculous to me because I don't care how you're aligned or structured. At some point, you have to try to make that team physically show they can do the job in stopping you. And Dickinson didn't. He just decided on his own, based on the look showing, to not run the ball. I don't see that happening again this year, right? And they got Dedrick Mills coming back on the roster this week, so they're getting healthy with their entire run game. So BC's got to show they can do that because I just don't think Calgary's going to opt to not do it like they did a year ago because what a mistake that was. So it gives the Lions get motivated to strategically put in a plan to physically put themselves in position to stop because defensively, this team is not good enough right now.
Well, one guy that is good defensively, Matthew Betts, that was a big story for me. I really liked him getting his 18th sack. Brett Johnson, in our eyes, Farhan, one of the best Canadian defensive linemen. But Matthew Betts says, do you think Matthew Betts, with his 18 sacks, will get any NFL interest, Farhan?
Yeah, I'm not sure, just because he's been down that road before. Certainly that was much earlier in his career coming out of college, so he hasn't necessarily he has actually improved and shows, the ability to excel at the professional level, but I don't know that Betts has all the measurables they're necessarily looking for. So it's certainly possible. I'm sure his agent's going to kick those tires. I'm sure he's going to get a couple of tryouts. But, what's rare with Matthew Betts is the Lions paid him a lot on this 2-year deal, and he hadn't done anything in Edmonton. Generally what happens is you do something, you get paid, and then you may or may not live up to your salary. They actually paid him more than he was worth coming out of Edmonton, and then he lived up to it. So they got full value. So, I certainly love what the guy's doing. Will he get a meaningful NFL look? I'm not necessarily convinced, but you talk about Brent Johnson being one of the best Canadian D linemen ever. I think Brent Johnson was one of the best linemen ever, period. Yeah. I think Betts is showing that level of impact in this league. And here's what's been interesting. He wasn't a unanimous pick, and people have questioned that. And I said, you know what, don't, because Ben Haladic had a great year, both defensively and as a Canadian. So the fact that it wasn't unanimous and he got some love for his contributions with the Lions with some votes, I think is a positive thing.
Farhan, Sunday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken, you were there in Philadelphia. Eagles over the Dolphins, 31-17. What was your takeaway? Because most of us haven't had that experience from an NFL game in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I've been to a few there, and the environment is awesome, right, at both places. If you go to, well, not necessarily Miami, but if you go to places like Philadelphia, places like Kansas City, the fan base is just so incredibly passionate. But as far as the game itself is concerned, Miami's got to show some things, right? Like they do need to show that they can perform at a high level offensively when they're playing some of the best defenses in the league. And right now they've played two very good teams in terms of Philadelphia and Buffalo, and they haven't been good. They haven't been explosive. And I think Tua's played well, but you could see watching that game that there wasn't necessarily a lot of separation for his receivers. He didn't necessarily have as much time. And I'm a big fan of Mike McDaniel and what he's shown to this point in his career as a head coach and as a play caller. So, they've got to find solutions for teams that have the ability to play man coverage, to provide support against top players, and to generate pass rushes without committing too many people to it, right? So I think Miami's for real, but I think they've got to continue to prove that, because right now 0-2 against top teams, and their schedule now going forward is only going to get tougher.
Farhan, thanks for this, and again, my friend, thanks for yesterday, for showing up. Really appreciated that.
Congrats again, buddy.
You bet.